Hello and welcome to an episode of Historically Mart. I am Jason in Pacific, Missouri. This is a classic Route 66 community just outside the St. Louis area. Now, this is on the 1932 to 1977 alignment. So this wasn't originally on the 1926, but this is still a great Route 66 stop if you're wanting to go either direction. It parallels Interstate 44, which of course took the place of Route 66. But I'm going to show you some cool historic stuff in this town, as well as some markers, maybe some hidden gems, who knows. But yes, I'm outside the Red Cedar Inn. We're going to be going in there shortly. But first, I'll tell you some history about the community of Pacific. Here we go. Dates back to 1851. The town got its name from the Missouri Pacific Railroad. It has a population of 7,500. The railroad's original intent was to reach the Pacific Ocean. Pacific was also once a silicon mining town. As far as Civil War history, in 1864, Confederate troops led by General Price fought here and lost to Union forces and had to retreat. Let's take a look at this nice mural here. We're going to go that way. I'm not really sure the thing about the quilt prints, but maybe I'll find out later in this journey. See the 12-foot statue. And this is definitely a family photo spot. You'll find these in certain places in Illinois, south of Springfield. But yeah, you can even go inside these babies. Here is the Red Cedar Inn. This will be my first time going in there. But first, let's read off this marker. Okay, so the restaurant was built in 1934 by brothers James and Bill Smith using logs from the family farm. It was owned and operated by the Smith family until closing in 2005. In 2023, the Red Cedar reopened as a museum and visitor center. And just a reminder, Missouri66.org is where you want to get your kicks. So this is a building that was added to the National Register of Historic Places, and as the marker said, it was owned by James and Bill Smith, and they were bootleggers. Now 1933 was the year Prohibition had ended, and right away they wanted to start to sell moonshine liquor, and that they did. Well, maybe. So they added a restaurant a couple years later, and eventually a gas station that sold mobile gas. The name was from the peeled cedar posts from the Smith's farm in Villa Ridge, Missouri, to kind of give it a pioneer days Missouri look. James Smith's son and grandson ran the place until 1972. The place closed until 1987, but it reopened, and like the marker says, it closed again in 2005. This sat empty for many years, and then finally 2022 the city of Pacific bought it and it reopened as a museum, welcome center, and this is definitely the place to check out. Now make sure you check the hours. They are not open on Monday and Tuesday, but they do have somewhat limited hours. Like some days they're open 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Today's Sunday, the day I'm here, they're open for 4 hours. That is the bar part, which will be going in. And I asked the lady what this is or was. She did not know. I mean, you can only know so much. She was probably a volunteer, and that's fine. But I am kind of curious, so if anybody does know what this was, please let me know in the comments. Thank you. And there's a walkway that goes around it. Well, they do have public restrooms. So that's the basement. All right, here we go. Nice. This is also a museum. Talks a little bit about everything, including Route 66. Like that, of course, Cyrus Avery, not Avery Cyrus. All the past and present businesses in Pacific. like I am right here. And some cool memorabilia. A DVD of the TV show Route 66, which did not take place anywhere on Route 66. The Diamond's Garage. Oh wow, that's a thermometer. This is an actual Route 66 metallic sign, but date is unknown. And we all know there was a song written about Route 66. This is definitely a great tribute to Route 66, celebrating its past. It even includes the Green Book, as you know, it's an uneasy subject, you know, as far as, you know, how African Americans were denied service in a lot of areas. And this here talks about the Osage tribe, the Native Americans that were here before, the Merrimack River, and Pacific, Missouri. These seats once belonged to the Royal Theater. We're not allowed to sit or touch them, but I'd show you anyway. They're from the 1930s. These are actual dining chairs from the Red Cedar circa 1934, as well as a dining set. And a table topper circa 1980. And the lady told me they added restrooms here in the museum, so in other words, I'm technically outside the place. You notice these logs. And they have a children's museum in here too. Wow. It's dark, but hey. Let me see if I can turn the light on. Okay. Oh, this is so cool. Yeah, it's coming from up there, those birds, but still. Sand dunes. It's definitely something for the kiddies. There's also an exhibit here about America's 250th birthday. We're going into the bar area. This was added in 1935, just a year after it opened. It's got the original bar and everything. It's even got the tap, well, one of them. And of course all the original seating. So as you're heading west, going into town, this is Campbell's Service Station Museum. It was put together by two gentlemen, Dwayne Campbell and Larry West, who contributed the memorabilia. It is a popular stop. However, the museum is by appointment and it is locked. The property is, and who can blame them? I mean, there's a lot of stuff that can easily been stolen. But I thought I'd come show this to you anyway. One of these days, I'll make the trek out here. But yeah, this used to be a service station from the 1950s. If the gates are open, by the way, and if you don't come here by appointment, and guests are encouraged to come in and check this out. So, who knows? We're going to take a little walk, a little upwards. But first, let's read the marker. Jensen Point, built in 1939 by the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC. Jensen Point was part of the Henry Shaw Gardenway as a beautification project of the National Park Service and the Missouri State Highway Commission. The overlook was dedicated to Lars Peter Jensen, the first president of the Henry Shaw Gardenway Association and manager of the Shaw Arboretum, or the Missouri Botanical Garden. And here's another marker as we set our journey up there about the Civil War. The Confederate Army, under the command of Major General Sterling Price, reached this point on October 1st, 1864, put up by the Merrimack Valley Genealogical and Historical Society in 2014. All right, let's do this. A little cardio workout, I should say. I wonder if Dolly Parton helped build this place. I'm just kidding. Whenever I see butterflies like those, I kind of think of Dollywood. Okay, joking aside, let's continue on. And obviously, be very careful as you walk this. It's not really stable, as you probably already know. Well, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, even though there's more stairs up ahead. If you just want to kind of take a glance at the flagpole, yes, it is windy outside. It's going to rain soon. So now I'm going to go ahead and make another upwards trek. Here we go. And here I go. Ooh, that's windy. Now I'm entering the scenic overlook part. You can get a nice view of the city of Pacific from here, or the Merrimack River. Here's a plaque. Lars Peter Jensen, for 18 years, manager of the Missouri Botanical Garden Arboretum. Born in Denmark in 1867, died Grace Summit, Missouri, 1941. This was put up on June 1st, 1941. Here's some other cool views. But the real city, the full city of Pacific is just right up ahead. We're gonna go back down to civilization. All right, now I'm at Beacon Car and Pet Wash on Route 66. This used to be a motor court, but I'll go ahead and show you on that historical marker right over there next to that van, or truck, I mean. All right, Beacon Car Wash. Opening in 1946 to all travelers of Route 66, the Beacon Court Motel is only a memory, but its iconic sign now lives on in its new home, the Beacon Car and Pet Wash. The Beacon Tower was dormant from 1980 to 2004, but a full restoration was completed in 2018, bringing back to life the 1940s neon sign, which is visible for miles. So about the motor court, it advertised itself with 16 modern, tastefully decorated cottages. And yeah, motor courts were mostly for families before chain motels took over. Like, it didn't have cable TV, of course, cable TV didn't exist back then. But like so many other motels along the Mother Road, business probably pretty much fell off a cliff when, yeah, Interstate 44 opened in the 1960s. But it is nice that this has been restored, as well as the sign, which I'll show you. And check out those bluffs. Oh my gosh, that is so awesome. And here's that sign. Very nice. Looks well clean. I like to see it lit sometime. I don't know when that'll be. Here's a much better view of it farther. All right, now we're gonna go continue westbound that way into Pacific. And there's a strip mall across the road which has a hidden mural. Let's check it out. So this is not about Route 66, but more about the city's railroad history. The day the train came to town, circa 1853. I mean, remember, back in those days, transportation was everything. There were no real roads, not the roads we take for granted today, but railroads offered opportunity for growth, travel, you name it. And not too far from the mural is this old service station. This was known as the Whitlock Sinclair Filling Station. It is now an insurance agent. But this was built in 1932, and it was operated by Earl Whitlock Sr. It became a Standard Oil station in 1951. A year later, it was purchased by the Millers, who lived next door, and operated the service station until 1964, when it closed. And then it became a sandwich shop, which opened in 1964, and not much else is known, but I thought it was worth noting. I mean, notice the stone walls and everything. But yeah, very cool. And from there, we cross the line to Franklin County from St. Louis County, which is kind of, I don't know why, it's just notable. But here is Graze Catering. There's a marker that tells about this business's history. This World War II era quonset hut with a unique store facade was built here in 1950. It started out as a family-run dry cleaning business by the original owners. Over the years, it has been a photo studio and the home of several roadside diners serving hungry Route 66 travelers. In 2016, it was remodeled and opened as Graze Catering, continuing its food service legacy. That's what they're talking about right here, the quonset. Isn't that cool? And as the marker said, some diners had their home here, such as DJ's Cafe, Monroe's Diner, Down South Cafe, and again, this is now Graze Catering. Across the street from the catering place is a place called 66 Goodies. It's an antique mall. It's closed, but maybe next time. Here's another historic building called the Mail Residence. Built in 1907 by marble cutter Joseph Ottman, the house originally stood at First and Union before being moved intact to Osage Street by the Mail family. It was later purchased by the Hughes family and restored to its original state. And now it's England and Company Case Management. Very cool. For all the Civil War history buffs, there is a high ground area just above Blackburn Park. It is usually known as the Battle of Pacific Historic Site. While up here, you can get a nice view of the city, as well as downtown Pacific. Okay, we're going to go off the Mother Road a little bit and into town. This is the post office, of course, but let's see what this was. Okay, so this was once known as Lieber Hall. Very different building than what it once was, but obviously it was torn down. But let's see what it says here. In the early 1900s, Lawrence Lieber used a horse-drawn wagon to deliver Excelsior beer from the train depot to Pacific businesses. After his death in a train accident, sons Ed and Lawrence II continued the business. Relatives operated Lieber Hall on West St. Louis Street, with Mary Lieber its longest-serving owner, until it was demolished for a Citizens Bank expansion. Okay, interesting. So I'm going to kind of look around downtown Pacific, see if there's anything interesting. I see a couple things. So there's a lot of interesting small businesses and a lot of old buildings along that strip. But I'm going to go ahead and cross the railroad tracks, which I already have, and visit Pacific Station Plaza, where there's a marker about an old building here. Okay. The Air Riser building. I don't know why I was stumbling on that one. After the Civil War, Joseph Air Riser, who struck fortune in the 1849 gold rush, built this brick structure on the site of a burned railroad storehouse. It served as a boarding house for rail workers and later as a successful general store. Air Riser also helped found Pacific's first bank. The building was demolished in 1945, and a Burlington Northern Santa Fe caboose now marks the spot, which we're going to check out. Just kind of looking around this pavilion here, and here's another Civil War related historical marker. Now these Missouri Civil War historical markers are found all over the state of Missouri in places where obviously the Civil War battles and events have happened. This is one. I mean, they're all very detailed. This one is called War on the Pacific Railroad. And unfortunately, yeah, it's shown signs of wear. And then here's the caboose that's behind the pavilion. And there's a marker about that. So this was where that Air Riser building was, as it says on the marker. But let's check out this one about the Pacific Train Depot. When the Missouri Pacific Railroad took over in 1872, they needed to build a larger depot to accommodate their growing transportation needs. The Pacific Depot was constructed in 1882 along the tracks downtown. The depot was torn down in 1976, but several pieces of it are still around today. Here's an old mercantile building, dates back to 1908. It is now Pacific Brew Haus. And next to it, let's check that out. So this is the opera house they were talking about at the Red Cedar Inn. Really cool. And here is something from the 1904 World's Fair. This building was reconstructed for the 1904 World's Fair. The grand opening was New Year's Eve in 1908. The McHugh and Daly Opera House. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and have a meal at this brew house. Check it out. Alright, so I went ahead and got the Brew Haus burger. I kind of overdid it by getting a fried egg on it. I didn't buy any beer, but that's okay. I thought I might as well just go ahead and chow down. Here we go. So below that area I was, this is Blackburn Park, which also houses Adam's Garden. It pays tribute to children who passed away. Now that, of course, is a statue of a Grieving Angel. It is surrounded by bricks that are engraved and park benches, and it has bricks of those who have lost children. So this park did not exist until 2004. It was started by Gina and Mark Pingleton after they lost their son that year. And since then, it has paid tribute to many who have lost their children. This was dedicated in November 5th, 2011. This pretty little fountain here is in memory of Scott Lamar. It was apparently donated by US Silica, the materials that is. Checking out this gazebo. Yeah, this was Adam Pingleton. There's also a Veterans Memorial here. This was first put here in 2013, and it pays tribute to all those we have lost in the military. One other thing to look out for, besides obviously a falling rock, check out that sculpture there. It is a special statue of children resting in memory of those who were lost. And to cap off your visit from Pacific, what is a visit without visiting Bigfoot 4x4? And by Bigfoot, I'm talking about this bad boy right here. They don't want anybody to climb on it, and who can blame them? But yeah. Now this was originally in Hazelwood. The headquarters for Bigfoot 4x4 are here in Pacific. It's been that way since 2015. But yeah, this definitely makes for a great photo op. Can you dig? All right, thanks so much for tuning into this episode of Historically Marked Route 66 edition here in Pacific, Missouri. I know some people would rather take the 1926 route, and if you don't, that's fine. But if you do want to take the 1932 route, by all means, don't take Interstate 44, which of course is right next to me. But yeah, Pacific has a lot of attractions. I was actually going to do a combination one with Eureka and Allenton. Allenton is a ghost town. There really wasn't much there for me to film. So yeah, but then Eureka was kind of the same thing. They don't really do a lot of history of Route 66. I mean, they do, but they don't, you know what I mean? So anywho, all right, get your kicks on Route 66. I'm Jason, signing off.